Hey guys, I'm Composer, and I'm going to try to make a comprehensive tutorial on my method to Penguin Proxy. This tutorial is going to add audio in certain places to help demonstrate the correct rhythm, to help you understand the correct timing center you should be aiming for. Remember that tricks like this take time to hit, and more time to build consistency for. Don't be discouraged if you don't hit it at first. I'll first show you the movement we use to get to the penguins. It's quite simple. Once you spawn into Winter Tundra, you begin to charge, and shortly after, while still charging, turn right so that you come off of the edge. Right when you fall off, slide your thumb from squared to X to initiate a glide. It's important to note, if you press X too early, you'll either fall off or you'll jump. And if you press X too late, you'll lose height and bonk or not make it. The timing here isn't very tight. I just essentially look for right when Spyro begins to fall or when his head begins to dip downwards, and then I slide my thumb over to X. After a few tries, it's not that bad. You also want to make sure you don't deviate too far to the right, so you go straight to the ledge, although it's easy to recover if you accidentally do. Now that you know that, simply charge onto the ledge and get to a position where you can double jump to where the penguins are. It can be easy to bonk here if you aren't far back enough, so just play it safe. Something general that I look for is to see if Sparks has picked up the purple gem or not, and if he has not, then I think that I'm far back enough. Now once you're up, you're ready for Penguin Proxy. So I'm going to try to break it down into a couple of steps. Step 1, penguin positioning. The penguins move in cycles and choose to stop moving at random times. You want to make sure you and the penguin are in a good position for you to hit him. It is easier to hit him while he stops moving, but he doesn't always stop moving right when you want him to when you get to him. So waiting for him to stop moving can waste some time in certain cases. As you get better, you'll learn to work around the penguin's movement, and it's okay to wait for him to stop moving if you struggle to work around the movement at first. I definitely found it hard to try to react to the penguin's movement when I was learning this trick. So again, beginning the proxy where the penguin is in a useful spot and easy to be hit makes it so much easier to land where we're trying to land. I try to aim for him to be right around here so I can go straight up to where I need to go. You can make proxies from many different positions, but if you get little height, you won't make it when you initially would have if you had started in a better position. Now there are backups for when you get little height, but I'll go over those later. It's also useful to note there are 2 penguins, meaning you get 2 tries if you mess up once. Though I do find it slightly harder to position the second penguin in a useful way to make the low proxies work, as he likes to chill right around this terrain over here. So I often try to aim myself to hit him in a way to ensure that I won't bonk. This is technically harder to make with a lower proxy, but I find it causes less fires when you do it like this. You must also turn around after a proxy like this since you aren't facing the terrain. Make sure not to start turning until after you've hit the proxy to ensure you don't screw your position up. You have plenty of time to turn around after. So what I find very useful is to use an audio cue of the penguin dying and of Spyro jumping afterwards to determine if I was early or if I was late. You want to listen closely to how soon/late you hear your jump come out after you hear the penguin die. This is about when you want to hear your jump after the penguin dies. As you can hear, we are waiting a brief period of time in between hitting the penguin and jumping. Do not jump right when you hit the penguin. You want to make sure you're charging into him a little after you hear him die. You also want to make sure that you are short hopping. The method I use aims to allow me to always use a short hop by tapping X as quickly as possible while I'm charging. If you time it right, you don't have to mess around with all these different sized jump heights or anything like that. Just always go for the shortest jump possible and rather focus on the timing when you jump after the penguin dies rather than how much you jump. You'll know you jumped at the right time if the sound between the death and the jump sounds like it does in the example I showed you, and when Spyro is jumping into the penguin like so. Like I said before, if the penguin is moving and it begins to turn slightly in a direction before you hit it, you'll need to turn slightly in the air to adjust. Again, I highly recommend practicing with a stationary penguin at first. Something you may notice while practicing is you may try to press X when you hear the sound in my video, and you may notice that your jump comes out later. That's because all setups, including PS2s, have some inherent amount of input delay between you pressing the button and the sound/Spyro jumps coming out. This means you'll adjust your timing in comparison to what you'd think you'd press as you develop the muscle memory for the trick to get it to sound the way you think it should sound. Step 3. Timing the proxy. If you did the rest of the setup correctly, this next part shouldn't be too bad. You simply press X again after the short hop charge jump while still holding square. Timing the proxy may be a bit awkward at first, but it quickly becomes muscle memory since there is no audio cue for this part of the trick. However, I have edited in some audio to demonstrate the proxy timing in between the jump. So as you can hear, there's a small amount of time between the first jump and the proxy. Getting this timing is the most critical part of the trick, and it might take a little while before you're totally used to it, since there isn't instant feedback if you're early or late like with the jump. I'd recommend re-listening to the timing I edited into the video as many times as you need to internalize the timing. Step 4. Getting to Dragon Shores. If you get a high enough proxy, you can jump right over the mountain like so. You'll simply take a left, dive down a bit, and then enter Dragon Shores like you would proxyless. If you don't get one that's insanely high, you'll need to land on this piece of geometry right here. You can land on it straight like so, but hovering really helps ensure you won't fall off. Once you are standing on the geometry, simply double jump twice over this part of the mountain. I try to time my second double jump just a little bit slower after the first one, as sometimes you can bonk. It's important to note, if you hover too high or too far to the left, you'll often fall down the left side like this. If this is happening, hover more towards the right. Like I mentioned before, sometimes when doing the second double jump, you'll bonk. If this happens, don't freak out. You can save it. Simply glide once, and then double jump afterwards like so. You do the first glide to stop the bonk from happening again, as the extra height from the glide helps you clear the mountain with the double jump. Like I mentioned previously, if you miss the first penguin and you want to ensure that you have a good amount of area to hit the second penguin, I recommend going this way. After practicing a regular setup with the penguin and getting decent with that, I recommend practicing this type of setup too, as it's just as important, as sometimes you will miss first penguin in runs. Again, you simply press right or left right after the proxy to turn around, and you'll flip quite fast. When it comes to practicing hitting a moving penguin, you honestly just gotta get a feel for how to react. You often don't have to readjust at all because it's moving in a straight line, but sometimes, like when they go slightly left or right, you do have to tap to make an adjustment mid-jump. This is hard at first, but as Penguin Proxy develops into muscle memory, it becomes much easier to focus on reacting to the way the penguins are. Practice on stationary penguins as long as you need to until you can react to the subtle movements. The backups. There are two primary backups you can go for if you know you're not going to get enough height to get on the geometry. This is specifically useful for the second penguin in my opinion, since it's over by the wall we need to land on anyways. If you start to turn to go to the normal spot and you notice you're not going to have enough height, begin to turn back around quickly and head towards the wall. Both backups take place here. The easier backup is taking this whirly right here to the same geometry like so. This harder backup, which saves about 7 seconds over the whirly backup, requires double jumping onto this piece of geometry right here. I stand right about here when I double jump. This can be quite tricky at first, but a tip I do have is to let go of X and square after your double jump quite quickly, so that way you don't bonk. Once you do manage to land here, turn Spyro right carefully to not fall off. Now this is the tricky part. You want to double jump and turn Spyro left around this geometry here. This gains you height necessary to make it. Once you curve around and begin to glide, treat it the same way as the whirly back up. Press R2 and up while you hover and land. If you find this too hard at first, it's not a big deal to go for whirly instead. It only loses about 7 seconds over this backup, but I would highly recommend still messing around with it, as after some practice it's really not that bad. If you're still fairly new to entering the Dragon Shores portal from under the map, here are some brief tips for that. I like to aim towards this edge as a good starting point, making sure I aim barely under it as I pass to ensure max height. If you're a little high, you can flop like this, so it's okay to go a little lower than you'd expect, as you don't need to be perfectly under it. Then I try to visualize the portal directly underneath where it is in the map. Just glide towards where you would imagine it would be if it was just directly down. In other words, look at Spyro in comparison to the portal above him and try to keep him in the center of it. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Penguin Proxy. If there's something you didn't understand or you need further explanation on, feel free to comment. These tricks can be frustrating to practice at first, especially when you can't hit them for a while. But with enough practice, you will get better at them. I do plan on making more Spyro 2 tutorials in the future, as it's my favorite speed game, and I hope you enjoy running it as much as I do. Good luck.